Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Florida Sound Archive podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Kaiser. And for today's episode, I have on with me some very special guests. I'm pleased to welcome on Dan Fontana, Chad Steinhart, John Somerlade. You may recognize them from the 90s South Florida metal thrash band Amboog-A-Lard. They're here to tell their story. We'll also spend a lot of time talking about A New Hope. Guys, welcome into the podcast. It's great to have you.
Awesome to be here.
Awesome to be here. Yep.
It's good to have you on. A lot of people who've come on the podcast, especially those that came out of South Florida in the late 80s and 90s, have brought up in some way, shape, or form Amboog-A-Lard, whether they played a show with you guys or whether they were just a fan. So it's going to be really interesting to hear the story today. And I'd love to take a moment to just hear from each of you, just a quick introduction on what role you played with the band. So we'll start off first with Dan.
Hey, Dan Fontana. I guess one of the founding members of the band back in the late 80s. Lead guitar, lead vocals, songwriter, pain in the ass, all those things.
Thank you, Dan.
I'm not wrong.
And we'll go over to John.
I was the drummer of the band from 93 to its conclusion, I believe. Or was it 92?
It might have been.
It might have been like the middle of 92 is where I'm thinking we were at. And then, from that point forward till we called it quits. So playing the drums, doing some lyric writing, and just overall, concept stuff. We put our heads together and came up with this mishmash of all our influences. So that was a good time, definitely.
Thank you, John. And Chad.
Chad Steinhart. I play keyboards, synthesizers, other assorted noises,
electric drums,
percussion, electronic percussion.
Yeah.
Keys and samples. Any other sound that you heard that wasn't a guitar or drum or bass was made by me, pretty much. Anything in the group. The snippets of sounds and sound effects was all coming off of me or my synths or samplers. That's pretty much what I did. And then I shared some lyric writing with these other two gentlemen here, yeah. and some conceptual stuff as well. And I also helped to manage the band before we hired management. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, Huey.
This is all true. It's so funny. Yeah, it's true. You did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, there is one member who was also on A New Hope that is not here with us, and that would be Jordy White. Could someone just give a quick intro to what his contributions were as well to the band?
Jordy was integral to the record and to the band for the whole time he was in the band, was most of the band's life. Started off playing rhythm guitar. When we did A New Hope, he played bass. Wrote a lot of stuff, wrote a lot of key riffs, conceptualized a lot of stuff too with us. I mean, he was, it was really the four of us that had, I would say, equal share parts in making that record.
Yeah.
Not a lyricist really, but an idea guy for sure. Yeah. But bass on the record, on the New Hope record, he played bass, and but he wrote a lot of the guitar parts that I played. So, and then he left us.
And we'll get into more of the story of the band and all that, and kind of how things ebbed and flowed throughout the journey. But thinking about how you all got together and connected, some of your earliest influences, the origins of the name Amboog-A-Lard, let's unpack some of that to get us started here. So how did you all even get connected in the first place?
Wow. John, you should take that. I mean, you were the godfather of heavy metal in Coral Springs.
Yeah, I guess the beginning was really more. I had my band Panic in South Florida, and we had been playing shows and whatnot, and these other metalheads from the other parts of town would come to our shows and would watch that. And then the next thing you know, they're putting bands together. And then we started doing shows over at, what was that? Club Soda was the place that was going to feature local rock and metal bands. And I remember one of our show was, I think, the first Amboog-A-Lard show and probably Geordie's first show with his band, the Ethiopians, opened up for Panic at that Club Soda show back in the day. And we all just, I became kindred spirits with these guys just because we're musicians and metalheads. But even more so, I think we were more, we kind of stayed connected for the other things we were into, like Star Wars and science fiction and the bands that we liked. So we really formed a friendship outside of the band before I was actually ever joined the band. So at that point, I would say that, Dan would probably be able to go and take the reins and explain the history of the formation of Amboog-A-Lard from that point.
Yeah, I can handle some of that as well. But Dan can start. I'll add in here.
Yeah, just jump in. But like John and Panic were the influence for all of us. They really were. They were a kick-ass metal band, and we all it's funny because John's you're like a year and a day older than me, or a year and our birthdays are April 24, 25. Just he's a year older, and you guys always seemed like the next big thing. And it was we looked up to Panic and John was held court in the fucking mall food court. We'd all sit around and talk about whatever metal band, whatever record came out, or the latest greatest Metallica record.
Right.
And John would be like, you should
back and forth between the record stores and the video arcade.
and a lot of the stuff that we end up listening to was probably on your recommendation, because you had your finger on the pulse of metal. Still do. Way more than me. I've always been accused of liking 3 bands, but it's not entirely true, but mostly. But so in high school, if you can believe it or not, myself and George Kokoris, who was the original drummer for Amboog-A-Lard, and Barry Alpert, who was the original bass player for Amboog-A-Lard, and Chad were all in school together. And so we kind of started this band just to play our favorite songs. We weren't really writing anything, but I think even when we did the show at Club Soda, it was just covers. I don't think there was any original music in that, because I think Craig Israel was the singer.
Yes, Craig Israel was the singer.
He was definitely the singer.
Isn't that a trip? And Geordie wasn't in the band. Geordie was
Geordie was in the other band, the Ethiopians, with Pat and Josh.
Holy shit! Yeah. I still talk to Macaulay from time to time. He hits me up all the time.
Where is the bass player kid? I can't remember the bass player's name that played for them. I don't think he did much anything out after that, but yeah, I know it was. You guys were Coral Springs High, and Geordie and me and Pat, and we went to Taravella. So there was, we were both kind of came up in our own little sub-genre of metalhead friends in that school, basically.
So true. It's so true, because and the funny thing is that we should have all been in Taravella because we lived right there.
Yeah, right.
Me and George and Craig and Barry lived across town. I
was a little further away from you guys,
and you too. But anyway, so we started jamming, and then basically Geordie was working at a record store. What was the record store right by the mall?
Q Records.
Fucking A, you're right. So Pete Charlotte was the manager, right?
Yep.
And Geordie worked there. And the SAC. And Geordie worked there. And then one day I went in and I said, "You want to be in this band? I mean, whatever the hell we are." And he was like, "Sure." And then I literally went to his house and said, "Play Disposable Heroes." And he just sat down and played Disposable Heroes. And I'm like, "Okay, you're good." That was his entire audition.
Play triplets.
Yeah, can you do? Yep.
I mean, for this skinny little dude, man, he had the most right hand
ballsy, edgy sounding riffs with his right hand and his chops. He was a rhythm machine.
Yeah, I was just like, fuck. So at that point in time, I had no no interest in being a singer. I really still don't. But we had we had this dude named Sean Rogers. God rest his soul. He passed on.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, but a metal warrior, but just another different breed of dude. Just didn't come from the Metallica world like I did. He came from like this, like Destruction. Remember that band, Destruction? Creator, that kind of stuff.
He liked all the German thrash stuff.
Yeah, that really wicked. I mean, that's Overthrown. I mean, he wrote Overthrown. I mean, we made it into a song, but that whole dun, 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 that whole groove, that was him on some stupid guitar that had like acoustic guitar that had 2 strings on it. He said, dude, I want to do this. And we sat there and looked at him like, what? And then, but you step back, you go, oh, this actually makes sense. And so, at that point, Barry and George and I took the reins, and Jordy, I'm sure, took the reins and made that into the song it became. And the lyrics are all Sean. So anyway, at that point, that's the band. It's me, George, Barry, Jordy, and Sean. And then I'm
just hanging out.
Yeah. And Chad, you were starting to like become like the band manager at that point. You were starting to like
do stuff for you guys while you worked on music.
Yeah, helped all the logistics and helped get us places and help all those things. And even though we talked a lot early on about adding keyboards, we just never did until we did. But Chad was always there.
Yeah, I was there.
So
you were with me when I bought my synthesizers, my first synth,
the Korg M1.
Korg M1, and was it MAE, Music Arts Enterprises?
Yeah, same.
MAE, that's right.
You see that Marshall cabinet right there? That's my original Amboog-A-Lard Marshall cabinet that we bought at MAE.
Wow. I wish I had.
So Sean kind of let's say made some life choices that weren't that didn't go well with being in a band. And so he was let go. And for some reason, this is when we were still rehearsing in George's garage. God, I could have sent you pictures of this if I knew we were going to go this far back. And for some reason, I stepped up to the microphone, and we had written at that point like "Balance of Power," "Alone Against Chaos," "The Waiting," all these songs that most of them never got recorded. And "Overthrown," "Picture Perfect," of course, which became a crowd pleaser. But I stepped up to the microphone for some reason and just started singing "Balance of Power," and everyone was like, "Oh, fuck, you're the singer now." And I'm like, "Oh." Right? Yep. I mean, that's kind of the way it happened. And I just said, okay, whatever. I guess I'll be less the Kirk Hammett guy and more the Dave Mustaine guy. So that's fine. But that's the origins of it, man. Just a bunch of metalheads who
George's garage with the Verve.
Live for it.
And even though I wasn't in the band at the time, I would be over there hanging out with them when they were rehearsing and stuff in George's garage, because we would just, that was our clique. That was our, we were in different bands, but we were into the same stuff. And I'd come and hang out and watch them play and all that stuff. And Chad very much you were like the de facto manager at that point, because even like if I was putting a show together and wanted to have Amboog-A-Lard play with Panic, I would be talking to Chad. Chad would be the logistics guy to be like, yeah, okay, we'll book the show. He was the go-to person to deal with any business related issues at that point.
Because what the fuck did we know about any of that? We're just guitar players.
I was a nerd. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd.
What were the origins of the name Amboog-A-Lard, and who was responsible for stylizing the way the name and appeared on flyers and album art?
Well, when we did that show at Club Soda, Jordy and Pat McCauley, those guys were in a band called the Ethiopians. And so it was a joke name. And so we thought that we were, like, once again, we weren't a real band. We weren't playing original material. We thought this was just going to be for fun and, get to share the stage with Panic. And so we made up a stupider name, Amboog-A-Lard. And it just, I don't know, did it come off of like us making fun of George's mom?
I think so. But I remember because I was there, we were all at Don Carter's alley working on we were going to make a flyer. So I'm like, you guys have to have a name so we can make a flyer for the show.
Right.
I've given a different answer every time I've asked this question, so it's all confused in my head now. So I probably couldn't actually give you the actual origin, but the name definitely had something to do with George and Verge, and I think the movie Predator for some reason. I don't know why.
Yes, Predator.
Right. Fuck, dude,
Yes.
that's right.
It was Predator.
Predator, the Amboog-A-Lard, right? Something
Right.
like that.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I told you I remember a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no,
know
she
how.
said that the light bulb went on, and so yeah, the whole fat lady thing was definitely a riff on George's mom. Like, God rest her soul. She put up with a lot of shit from us.
She was pretty awesome.
She was awesome, you know, and God, yeah. So that's where the whole, you know, and you know, not like George's mom was some big fat lady either. And so
No, she wasn't.
no. But anyway, but she was a character.
But she had a bigger than life personality. That's what I mean.
Yeah, she was a character. I mean, I remember one time we were playing a show at Nobby's, and she came on stage and just took the mic from me and just started singing The Rose. And so we just like started backing her up.
I forgot about that. Oh my!
You know, she was a character. She was a huge supporter of the dream of the band, and you know, George was definitely a product of her. I mean, for sure, because George is a bigger than
character,
crazy motherfucker, you know. So that's probably all of those elements combined are probably where
the closest answer you're ever going to get.
The name came from. And then after the Club Soda show, I don't know, we just kept it. I don't know, probably one of the worst decisions of my life. I mean, because how many times do people offer us record label deals if we would change the name, right? We're like, man, we're not changing the name, bitch. We're Amboog-A-Lard.
Too many times.
Did you all ever even consider a different name, or did it always just stay with Amboog-A-Lard?
It always stayed with us, and I'm going to have to give props to John Moore for some of this, because Panic was like an Anthrax type of band, right? You guys kind of had this Anthrax vibe, and Anthrax was a huge influence on all of us, and we loved the fact that it wasn't always so fucking serious,
right?
And so, like, you know, Anthrax did, you know, I'm the Man and all this stuff that they did, and we loved that. Like, I'd say East Coast vibe, which was like, you know, the Anthrax, a New York band, and given they were incredible musicians, they still are incredible musicians, songwriters, players, but there was always an air of fun with them, right?
Like, they were always having fun with it, just having a good time.
Yeah, we never wanted to be like Slayer or Cannibal Corpse. I mean, of course we loved all those bands, but that wasn't our thing. We wanted to have fun. We wanted to be more fun. So that's why we had a stupid fucking name. And we dressed the way we did. And we let Jordy go on stage in Batman costumes made out of tablecloths and bed sheets. And
we were just having fun, you know, and that had a lot to do with the inclusion of all the pop culture stuff into what we were doing and all
because of Anthrax.
Because of Anthrax. It all goes back to, you know, if you want to get technical, it all goes back to them wearing freaking board shorts. And we were just like, oh, wow, I can be metal and wear board shorts. I don't have to wear jeans, you know?
The time with the cutoff shorts and the Doc Martens and everything. Those guys definitely had a lot to do with the gear we wore on stage, for sure.
Yeah, and they shared all of their other loves, like, you know, freaking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Danny's guitar, or, you know, Scott was always wearing freaking Portrait of a Serial Killer freaking shirt and whatever, and, you know, they always had their, you know, Batman and this and that. You knew what they were into. I mean, look at Judge Dredd. I mean, you know, I Am the Law. That right there was like, wow, these guys are into cool stuff that some people might, you know, it wasn't necessarily metal, you know, it wasn't necessarily you know, the same territory. It was more geeky stuff, you know. I mean, we were into all the geeky shit. We were into comic books. We were into, you know, cartoons and stuff like that. So, you know, they kind of gave the permission.
Right, exactly. And it's funny is because, you know, as much as our musical stylings are more, probably more Metallica, Testament, shit.
Definitely more West Coast, definitely.
West Coast, but
a lot of Testament in there for sure.
Yeah, but
all credit to them. They were very influential in
especially for George. George was a Testament freak, but the point being that the music sounded more like that, but the image was more Anthrax, was more fun. You asked about the logo. I think I drew it probably at Don Carter's that night with a Sharpie.
Yep, probably,
and refined it over the years. And it was just we just thought it was just a green slime. That was the idea of the Amboog.
It got refined by us and by John is our artist as well. John
Goldberg, yeah. John Francis,
Goldberg,
whatever. Francis.
John Francis Goldberg.
Yeah, and he was.
I still call him Goldberg. He's still Goldberg. The goalie.
Yeah. And he of course was a huge part of the.
He was an integral part
of the image of the band. Although the first Fat Lady drawing was done by Jeff Brown.
Yeah,
right. That's right.
She's on the world, flying on the world, and holding the Amboog-A-Lard logo over her head. I think Jeff Brown drew that.
He did.
That's the one on the yellow T-shirt, right?
Yellow T-shirt.
Jeff drew that. I'm almost positive of that.
But then after that, John took the reins of all of the Fat Lady drawings. We would come up with ideas, a lot of them having to do with the songs or certain concerts or certain shows that we were going to play, and he was our Derek Riggs for all intents and purposes. We were so influenced by Maiden too. Of course, we really didn't talk about Maiden much, but without Kiss, Van Halen, Maiden, Metallica, this would never have happened. But John became our Derek Riggs, and he drew probably, I don't know, tens of Fat Lady drawings, right? I mean, they're hilarious. They're all hilarious. I mean, they're freaking inappropriate as shit. I mean, we would never get away with this crap now. But
as far as any of it being correct for this time, definitely not.
Yeah, but some of it was
like
satire.
It's satire.
It really exactly. It was satire. If you keep through that lens, it's still fine.
The public's perception of satire in this day and age is a lot different than it was in the 90s.
That's true. But anyway, I mean, but some of the stuff that he did, like when we did the record and we had him do the playing card with A Matter of Honor and a Medicine. And he did it was so cool. Like the top of the playing card was the Fat Lady, but just her head, like a card. And she was done like a Klingon, because that Matter of Honor song was heavily influenced by Star Trek. And then the other side was Medicine Man, and she was dressed up like a Ewok, which was Logray, which is the Ewok medicine man. So but John just nailed that stuff, and all the stuff that he did, all that the liner notes and very alien looking gear.
Just an extraordinary artist.
And then,
so unique for the time as well. He definitely helped us with the layout for the album. That's all him. All the inlays for the CD, all credit to him. It all came from his head.
Yeah, that's true. And so because we if you guys remember when we did the record, we're like, well, what are we going to do for the cover? And the fact that we didn't want a Fat Lady album cover, we wanted something more serious, because we were like, better try and sell this fucking record.
Exactly.
Right?
Because half of the shit we did was just to make ourselves laugh more than anything else.
We were just ourselves.
And so it was like, okay, we got to be serious now.
Right, because I mean, the music was always serious as shit. The topics, what we lyriced about, how we played, the intention behind our musicianship was always very serious. But the image was just fun, and that's why we had that stupid fucking name. But now that I think about it in these terms and talking to you guys, I don't think I still would change it. Right? I mean, that's our name. That was the band.
The band.
That's it. That's what it was.
As you're thinking about too, and some of the different practice spaces that Amboog-A-Lard had the opportunity to rehearse in, take us through that. What were some of those places that you were practicing, and perhaps that there were other bands that may have been sharing some space or just were in the same vicinity as Amboog-A-Lard?
Well, we started off in George's living room when he got that giant 9-piece Pearl drum set. And it was set up in his living room.
Oh my God, it was so loud.
And oh God, and but we competed. We rolled in our Marshalls, and
Oh yeah.
but once again, talking about George's mom again, she allowed this shit. And before Amboog-A-Lard, the rehearsals were in my house, and my parents allowed it. So they would just go out for dinner and come home, and we put all the furniture on the patio. Literally, we take all the furniture and put it on the patio, and then set up George's drums. But when it became Amboog-A-Lard, for sure, it started in his living room, and then we got a warehouse, like the in Coral Springs, back in the industrial park, way back off of Wiles Road, way Coral Ridge Boulevard.
And it's really.
And I remember there was a second level. Now this speaks to the pure metal George Kokoris. There was a second level, and the second level needed to go so we could have the whole space, right? And so literally, I think I put on like Testaments to New Order and gave him a sledgehammer, and that second level was gone in 10 minutes. Because he's a maniac, right? I mean, back in those days, he was metal militia, man. He was a metal maniac.
He was a wrecking ball.
Yeah. And so, like, so anyway, so we were in there for the addition of Geordie, the addition of Sean, but no, we didn't share that space. But eventually we did with like you guys, right? Didn't we share with you guys?
Yeah. Eventually, and I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Blount Road. We shared a warehouse on Blount Road. I remember that.
Yeah, that was later.
Later.
The one in Coral Springs, I remember your drum set being in there. I remember me and you jamming shit off of Injustice for All, because that was the new Metallica record.
Right.
And you were always like a Nico McBrain single kick guy, but you figured out to play the and one with your floor toms.
Oh yeah, I was playing one with one bass drum and throwing the odd kick over on the floor tom. I remember showing that to Nico, and Nico being like, I don't mind, that's pretty crazy, And I still have a tape of us doing that, but that's funny you bring that up. But yeah, we did.
I remember that, bro. I remember, and it's like as much as I love George and creating music with George, it always felt like me and you were gonna together at some point.
And I did too, and that was like probably got us to the point of where we finally did come together. But we shared we shared warehouse space there in Coral Springs, and then at some point, whether we got kicked out or whatever was going on, is when we all wound up on Copans Road.
Yep. Right.
In that particular warehouse facility, everybody was in there. Like Saigon Kick was in there. We were, had their unit. We were in there with a couple other who was there was a band that was a couple doors down also. I can't remember everybody that was in that one thing, but I know it eventually. I think Manson was in there too, and everyone. So that was there was like this one complex that all the bands rehearsed in. Basket Case was in there. They had one in there too.
That's true. It was like Melrose Place of metal bands.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
But
it was cool though, because you would go and rehearse, and then you would hear somebody else, and we'd just take a stroll over to somebody else's warehouse and watch them play for a little bit. Yeah. Definitely a cool community.
There was always a sense of community.
I remember going to see Panic rehearse in a place where it was just you guys. I mean, I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was like a cool warehouse, like carpet on the walls, and it was like nice. And you guys were in there, and I was hanging with you guys, but that was not an Amboog-A-Lard rehearsal space.
No, that was the we used to share that with Diamond Rose.
Oh my God!
So,
dude,
yeah. So the original Panic warehouse was with Diamond Rose at the time.
That must have been it.
And what's that?
That was probably it then, right?
Yeah, that was the one, because those guys had done up with the carpet they soundproofed. They had put the big drum riser up in the back.
That's definitely yes.
Right. Yeah, that was a great warehouse, because it was everything was we had a ride. I mean, it's like you went in and it was like you walked into a stage. We had lighting, we had everything, to where we could rehearse as if we were playing live. So
that was it.
That was good.
So the Copans Road, was that the final rehearsal space? Is that where we?
Yes.
That was the spot.
We built A New Hope and
because we had remember I think we had gone into that other one where we had to built the room within the room. Remember that?
Yeah, it was Jeremy's.
We built I can't remember exactly where that one was, but we were in a different one than the Copans Road one.
Yeah.
And that was the one where we did most of our rehearsals for A New Hope, I believe. But I can't.
And then after we rehearsed in like one of my ex-girlfriend's dad's like storefronts in the back. Yeah, that's where we wrote like The Wounded and Solitude and
right.
Great fucking songs, man. Those songs deserve life too.
Yeah, they do.
Take us through some of the other early shows you can remember Amboog-A-Lard playing. Who were some of the other bands you would share the stage with? And even some of those shows where you may have had to travel a little bit further, whether it was in Broward or even getting closer to Palm Beach or Miami-Dade.
Yeah, well, the first real Amboog-A-Lard show is the Treehouse. In April of like 89 or something like that, 90, maybe 89. And then I remember we played there and it was run by a motorcycle gang, wasn't it? Those guys.
Yeah.
And they invited us back the next week and we came back and we kind of then became
he was a CB, I think.
CB. Yeah, that's his name. He was so good to us. And that's where we went. That's the same place where we went and that night hung out with Steve Harris and Steve Altman with the Treehouse.
Right.
And was playing, so it had to be because, but that was the Bob Franquist era of Amboog-A-Lard, so that had to be before that. So yeah, late 80s, early 90s. When did Fear of the Dark come out? Like 91, 92? Because that was the tour that we saw them in
right.
In Steve
they played Sunrise,
yeah. But Chad, you probably have a better memory of where we played, but the Treehouse was definitely the beginning.
As far as clubs and places that we played, I mean, the Plus 5 Lounge in Davie, the Cell Block, Summers on the Beach, Weekends, Button South in Hallandale, Reunion Room in Fort Lauderdale, Squeeze in Fort Lauderdale over the New River. Where it all started is definitely the Treehouse. Then in Palm Beach, we had like the Pit.
Yeah.
We had Crocos, and out in Plantation, we had this place called the Purple Grotto that we had a couple wild shows at.
New Year's Eve show.
And the New Year's Eve show we had at Reunion Room in Fort Lauderdale.
What would have constituted as a wild show for Amboog-A-Lard?
I'll let Dan take the reins and just explain the Reunion Room show and what George actually wore to that, if you want. What Bob actually did, what actually
I was with him when I was with George when he bought that freaking thing.
So oh my God!
This is
John. You're like, I'm going to join that.
I mean, if you want the prominent story that's wild, this is pretty crazy.
So the reunion.
I mean, you got to background it with a little bit. Like, this is not a metal club that we're
right.
playing.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Not a metal club, not a metal crowd. Known for an alternative crowd or more new wave crowd that loved us and allowed us through our contacts and through our management at the time, TCA Management, John Tovar, Frank Callari, they both rest in peace. Two of the biggest key figures in my time in the business as far as teaching me about the business, and they were mentors. But we played a show for Tim Gallagher, who was the promoter over at the Reunion Room in Fort Lauderdale on New Year's Eve, and he let us go. We had free reign. When we were there, we could do whatever we wanted on the stage. The stage was tiny. It was in front of the back bar. George's drums barely fit on it. I always used to get tapped on the shoulder because I would fog the back bar out, and the bartender would be tapping me on the shoulder, stop hitting the fog button, And I also did fog and effects also for the stage, as well as hitting all the other assorted noises and sound. But that show was a pretty crazy show. We did.
Like the real one was the Halloween show.
Yes, the Halloween show is without question the most crazy show. A little background on Reunion and the Halloween show.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was in the Reunion Room, and it wasn't an alternative club that was connected by what, like Confetti's was the big
Confetti's. Yes,
yeah. And
it was like 3 clubs in one. I remember that used to be their gimmick.
Yeah, so we'd get booked in there as soon as we got management. As soon as John Tovar, like Chad said, fucking God rest his soul, was so important to us. And Frank also passed on. Really started getting different gigs. Like they started crossing the band over into this like heavy alternative thing, and that's kind of what was happening in music in the early 90s, late 80s, right? Music was
Jane's Addiction came along. You had
right,
that.
and we loved that shit.
After Jane's Addiction came along, pretty much everything changed.
James and then Nirvana, of course, but that was 2 years later, a year later. But anyway, Nine Inch Nails, of course, Pretty Hate Machine was brilliant. Nothing shocking, brilliant record.
Huge influence on huge.
We love this stuff, and if you listen to some of our songs that we wrote later, like we wrote a song called "Here." And it was all wacko, Jane's Addiction ish, like ambient, weird chords, and I was playing all kinds of fucked up jazz chords and stuff. It's like a big metal drum behind it. But anyway, so there we are in the reunion room, and we played there a few times before, and we've had people, they loved us for some crazy reason. We brought Cindy to do lights. And
Cindy,
yeah, we brought Cindy to do lights, and I don't think we had a sound guy. Would Jeremy come with us for those shows?
He did the sound at that show. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken.
But it was a Halloween show, so the whole place is decked out with Halloween. Big rope spider web in front of the stage, and the whole place is decked out with Halloween.
Neon green rope spider web.
And so here comes George, and George has turned himself into Darkness from the movie Legend, the Tim what was his name, Tim Curry character.
Tim Curry.
And he had this mask, and it was the giant devil horns. If anyone has ever seen, you could probably put a shot of this in the podcast, with these giant, like John's arms, like these devil horns, and this. He painted his whole body red, and George was like, George was always ripped, and so he's and he had
George was a big dude, and he put this thing on his head. It was like
it was hilarious. It's like fucking hilarious. And
it was like he was a red Lou Ferrigno with a ginormous freaking devil head on.
And this is the beginning of the Bob Franquist era. Barry had left the band, and Bob joined the band, and we made Bob wear a gorilla suit. And so he was like, "It's going to be hot." I'm like, "Too bad. You want to be in the fucking band? You got to wear the gorilla suit, the head, everything." Jordy was Darth Vader. And I think I had like a Iron Maiden Eddie mask, or I was dressed up like Eddie. And Chad, I don't know, were you on this? You were on the stage at that point.
I was on the stage, and I was scared.
Because you were sitting next to Darkness. But I'll never forget, and I think it's on video somewhere.
Yeah, we have the video of that.
We're playing, we open with probably Thou Shalt Not Kill. And, Thou Shalt Not Kill just starts off straight off. 1, 2, 3, got, and it's like,
boom, you're off to the races.
And I look back, and this is what I see. I hear, but I see, because the mask had this deadpan face. It was like, it was the funniest fucking thing. And I turned around. I don't think I could even sing the beginning of the song.
No, you couldn't. I remember.
But little by little, the costumes came off. We eventually let Bob take the head off. But the crowd was so berserk. They were ripping the place apart. And they kept stopping the show. The DJ kept telling us, stop, stop, stop. It kept on coming. Guys, if you don't calm down, if you don't settle down.
And that's when Bob jumped through the netting in front of the stage to the dance.
So, yeah. So to tell Bob Franquist not to do something was not a good idea. So the whole netting broke. There was beer bottles. There was shit everywhere. The whole stage got trashed.
We bought a lot of stuff that night, guys.
We probably did. And Tovar was like, what the fuck? John was this big Cuban guy with this big voice. And he would always be like, you guys are going
He was our man in black for sure.
Oh, yeah. Big black hat.
Chasing people around backstage at the Cameo when they try to throw us out in the rain after we played with the Ramones.
Oh.
No, John was a legend, man. He was a fucking legend.
He's responsible for a lot of the South Florida music scenes.
We're talking about nutty Amboog-A-Lard shows. We played in Washington Square once down in Miami, and they had like tables and chairs, like they had left like maybe 30 feet to the stage, right, where people could make a pit or just come up or whatever. But then beyond that, there were these tables and chairs, but they're like patio chairs. They're like made out of metal. And I remember playing and just seeing those chairs and tables flying around the audience. And I was like, oh my God. Eventually these tables and chairs are going to come onto the stage. And guess who's front?
They're going to come. Yep.
You're standing in front of all of this.
Yeah. And then, so that was another one where they had to stop the show and like, God, we're not going to be able to play if you guys continue to wreck the fucking place. And remember that place we played, the Rock Box? Chad, you remember that in that weird stage the place went berserk and tables and chairs were flying around and it was awesome. It was metal as shit.
It was awesome. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, John, if we had any complete insanity when you were in the band on stage.
Well, I mean, just the insanity that we did ourselves. I mean, there was the freaking ginormous paper mache head of the fat lady on Pat. In his underwear.
That's true. Pat was our Eddie.
And didn't we have Nick Zeno's dress up as Gene? And when we played a Halloween show at the +5 or something, and he came out on stage and we played. What did we play? Did we play Deuce or
Strutter?
Strutter. We played Strutter.
I played guitar, I think. If I'm
no,
right.
you're right. It was Deuce. It was Deuce. Because remember, the jeans up. She's were the Deuce, yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. And then remember
the
ultimate freaking
Star Wars extravaganza. That was at Rosebuds.
At Rosebuds.
I forgot Rosebuds.
Oh my gosh.
Holy shit, dude. That's so funny. We would play and we had all the Star Wars characters come on stage.
We had the cantina scene in the middle.
We had the cantina theme play.
We did the whole cantina in the middle of an Amboog-A-Lard show.
Right. And Pat came on in his underwear and the mache hat again.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, so that's what we meant by crazy.
Yeah.
Some of it was crazy destructive because
purchasing like equipment from nightclubs that we didn't, own, basically.
I remember the time
half the time we didn't even take home any money because we wound up having to pay the sound man back for the microphones that
they would
got
pay
added into the crowd.
They would pay us, and then I would pay the sound man for all the crap we broke.
Did you all stay pretty local down south, or did you have any moments in this early period, or even as the band was playing even a little longer than that, where you may have played shows in some other towns outside of the general South Florida area?
Right off top, Chad, you would have a better memory of this, but we played in Tampa, we played in Daytona, we played in New Orleans, we played in Atlanta.
That's pretty much it. We never went up north. We never went up the East Coast or anything.
No, not really.
We were here, Miami. The furthest to Miami was Kendall.
Kendall, that's the Rock Box.
And that was bonkers, that place. And the drive was horrible. I remember.
It was a 4th of July too. I remember that.
That was bonkers, that show.
We never did a proper tour.
Okay.
No proper tour. Just we would when we traveled, we would go to music like events, like industry events type stuff, like Concrete out in LA. We went to a couple times to promote the album.
Nations Forum. Yeah, we did that twice.
That was a huge thing for the metal community back then. Was what they did out in LA with Concrete.
You have any stories about some of the other bands that you would share the stage with?
Oh God. Well,
before I was in the band, you guys went and played with. Didn't you play a couple shows with Scatterbrain when they were down there?
Yeah, we played a couple shows with Scatterbrain, and they scamboogeried us after that.
Right.
We opened for a lot of nationals. I mean, the best of all
Overkill
was probably Anthrax.
Right. Right. That was the last minute. That's a good story too. Tell them about the phone call you get from the big boss man that
Tovar,
get your amps and get your ass over to the button.
Get your ass to the button south. We're like, why? What's up? He's like, Iron Maiden canceled their show, and we had front row fucking tickets to Iron Maiden show and Miami Arena. And Anthrax,
Bruce is sick.
Anthrax wants to do a show still, and they want to play. So you guys are going to open for them at the Button South, and we're like,
okay,
just tell us when to be there. And that was so cool because they were so cool to us. They were all
nicest
of them
guys.
They were the nicest fucking guys. I remember the Scott Ian talking to Scott Ian, and he's like, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, originally from New York." He's like, "Oh, you fucking Yankee fan?" I'm like, "Actually, I am a huge Yankee fan." And he goes, "Come up on stage," and he hands me his fucking Yankee guitar. And I was just like, no frets, plus 12 with the New York logo and the Yankee blue pin. I was just like, and he's like, I'm like, and then I'm playing Scott's guitar through his rig, and I'm just like, oh, fucking crazy,
freaking awesome.
But I remember the coolest moment for me on that show was we were playing. It was probably Overthrown because that was a headbang.
It was Overthrown.
It's like a ostinato. It just never stopped. That song. Yeah. I remember looking to my right, and there was a DJ booth on the stage on the Button South on the right side of the stage, and there was Frank and Scott head banging to Overthrown,
the song that we wrote.
And I was just like, God damn. And then after the show, Dan Spitz was like, "What label you guys on? You guys, let's fucking go. Come out with us." And we're like, "We're not signed." And they were just like, "What?" There's like Persistence of Time tour for them. That was one of their, great record.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was cool. Yeah, we played with Overkill. We're at the Cameo. Was that the Cameo?
Yeah.
We played with
Exodus.
And the weird one was the Ramones.
I mean, we got to play with the legends.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd was kind of like, like
how'd you get that slot opening for the Ramones?
That was Tovar. Tovar had very strong relationships with all the local promoters, like Cellar Door Concerts and whatnot back at the time. And Cellar Door did a lot of favors for Tovar, and we did a lot of things for Cellar Door just for that reason, and they were very good to us.
There's a really cool photo of me if I could find it. I'm like doing my. And there's a giant Ramones banner behind me.
I mean, legitimately, like, you're being asked to open for one of the most legendary punk acts of all time in this country. And it was, going back thinking about it, I'm still a little overwhelmed when I actually think about that stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That was probably one of the coolest things that we ever got to do. That was so out of our zone.
I remember having to give the audience like a speech. And I was like, I realized that this isn't the fucking Ramones. I realized that we're a thrash metal band and they're not, but we still have some fucking fun tonight. And they were like, yeah. And then we played Overthrown. We got a great pit. But I think that was the first Cameo show, I think, right? Because that's when I went on stage and for the first time in my life heard what a real monitor rig sounded like. And I was like, George would be like, because George was what we call an excess musician. He never stopped fucking playing. Like, I'm trying to tune the guitar, bro. And he's George, it's George. But he's doing his George thing during our sound check, and there's wedges and then there's side fills. This is before ear monitors, and none of we never.
That's something you just had
ear monitors. What are those?
Right, exactly. We never had ear monitors.
Big box in your face.
And his kick drum just would be like boom, boom, boom. The whole stage would shake. And I was just like, and I'd be like, hello to the microphone, and it'd be like, hello, 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 hello. And I was like, this is like a professional thing. I like this. This was really super cool. But when we got to play with the Nationals, even I think to the end, we played like Corrosion of Conformity at the Edge, right?
Yes.
Yep.
It was a serious fucking onstage PA, and it was so fun.
Oh, it was great.
But for me, man, getting to play with Anthrax, who were, like
heroes, man. They're heroes of ours.
So yeah, they're legends and they're heroes, and that was special. But local bands, how about local bands? We got some local bands. Chad, you got a list.
Let's see. Malevolent Creation.
Fuck yeah. Many shows. Hundreds of shows with Malevolent.
Hundreds of shows with Malevolent.
Rape Dave.
Yeah.
Brothers in West Palm Beach, basically. Jim Hayward, their manager, did a lot of stuff for us as well. Collapsing Lung.
Who?
Cynic, another crazy death band.
Cynic.
Cynic, yeah.
Great musicians. Sean Reiner played drums for those guys, and The Itch. It's another band that played out a lot for the most part. As far as like bands that we were directly connected to, that's like pretty much it. And Marilyn Manson, you know,
Manson, and then we played with
Saigon.
They played with
Saigon Kick, you know, Matt, and all those dudes.
That was funny. We played a show at the Button South right when Saigon Kick got signed, and and it was us and Vandal. Remember that? Remember them? So Vandal was kind of like a hair band, right? We were
Kind of.
yeah. They weren't a metal band. They weren't like a thrash metal band, but neither was Saigon. But Saigon had that.
They had balls.
They had
they started to have that energy that was happening where you were blurring the lines between the alternative scene and the metal scene.
Yes,
so they definitely were riding the wave of the Jane's Addiction that kind of busted the door open on it.
Yeah. So I remember hanging out in the VIP area, which was that second level on the Button South in the back, where there's a bar back there, and hanging out with Dave Tabo and the cats from Skid Row were all there. So I think Sebastian wasn't there, but the guitar player.
He was there. He was just in his dressing room.
And and I remember like them telling us like, you guys need to be more extreme. You're too like how are we too tame? Like you got to do crazier shit, like come out with your pants off and all this. I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that, bro. And it was a very strange conversation that I had with him. But then we played, and he was like, "Oh, you guys are fucking good." I'm like, all right. So then that's when we got hooked up with Jason Flom and almost got a deal with Atlantic. All that shit fell apart. I would say all that shit fell apart. And who was the A&R guy with Capital, Chad, that almost signed?
Marco Barbieri.
Marco, yeah, and he was really a really good part of helping the band, like the Reach, get out of South Florida. Like he helped, like taught us how to get involved with zines and get coverage and like
spread the message, basically.
Where to send the tapes.
There was no social media,
Right.
Yeah, so that was cool.
That's a good segue, because just thinking about some of the different zines and publications, the large and the small, what were some of those reviews like back then, and what were some of the different publications that were helping to get the word out, not just about Amboog-A-Lard, but just about the scene as a whole?
New Times in Miami helped us in that part of this area. XS Magazine, Rag Magazine, Rip Magazine. Those were like the biggest like local rags that gave us tons of coverage. And there were other spinoffs that, Richard Kent was the photographer for a rag, and he spun off and did the South Florida Music News. And there was a lot of other stuff like that, but they were all they were super supportive. I mean, they gave us tons of coverage.
Even the Orlando,
a lot of credit to that coverage and breaking the band in Miami was all Tovar and TCA Management.
Yeah, and even the Miami Herald and the Sun Sentinel did stories on us.
Yeah, Sun Sentinel. Sandra Schulman at the Sun Sentinel covered the band, wrote a really, really awesome article on us. That's one of my favorite pieces.
That was the one where we were at the Sun Sentinel doing the photo shoot, and me and Jordy got into a fucking fight over who stood in the front.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And that's why Jordy's big mug is in front and center in the cover of A New Hope. I was like, want to be in the front, motherfucker? You can be in the front. But he was like, you always get to stand in the front. I'm like, I want the fucking lead singer, dude. You're not the lead singer. But John, can you talk more about like the zines, like
I think with
Japan and how we reached Europe? And
we actually we started getting I was always into the Europeans. I mean, I always had my ear to the grindstone with the metal. So like even going back, I would go all the way, go to Specs in the Broward Mall to get a copy of Kerrang so I could read up about all these bands I never heard of before, and then go buy the record just because the cover looked cool, And so I always was doing that. There's Metal Forces, and there was, Metal Hammer and all those. So I was into that, and then I would see where they started branching out and talking about unsigned bands, or they would have demo reviews and things like that. So back in the days of Panic, I started reaching out and sending stuff in, and we followed suit. Even Amboog-A-Lard in the early days would get demo reviews and stuff from some of those same European magazines going through the same channels, and we wound up with through that becoming really good friends with a girl by the name of Akemi in Japan, who was like just a huge big fan of Panic and Amboog-A-Lard, and she actually came over from Japan and stayed with me and my wife and kid at the time, and we got to take her to do some shows at the what was that? Where did we play? You guys, I think we played at the Washington Square. I think we brought her to see you guys play because I wasn't in the band yet. Panic played a different show the week she was there, but you guys were playing Washington Square. Anyway, she had all these kinds of connections with the record labels and stuff over in Germany. She was friends with Andy Siri and Nuclear Blast and all of those guys. So she really pushed us to all these people, and then we would get we get mail. I've still got a big box of the mail that we would get from all over the world asking for demo tapes and tape trading and things like that. So I think that's kind of how we got into some of the fanzines and stuff out there. Wasn't necessarily really tied into a lot of the more famous ones at the time. Like I know about them now, like Kick Ass and things like of that nature. But, just through a lot of the tape trading and stuff, word got around about Amboog-A-Lard, and then people would kind of start writing demo reviews and things. And then, of course, when we put A New Hope out, we would send those out and send packages out and get some pretty cool reviews out there. So neat stuff.
I remember when they reviewed the early stuff in the zines, and they would always compare us to Metallica and Testament. And it was really probably a ding on us, but I remember George was always like, "Well, I fucking love those bands, so that's cool."
Right.
I'd be like, "I don't think they're complimenting us."
Well, you guys sound really like Metallica.
Right.
I heard that many times.
But my vocals never.
Did it hurt us? Yeah, probably did.
Yeah, but I mean, really,
we definitely wore our influences on our sleeve. That's for sure.
We weren't afraid to show our backbone. And
yeah, but if you listen to like A New Hope, because in getting into the remaster, I was like, the song A New Hope, I was like, oh, this is just Son of the Seventh Son. What are we doing here?
Oh, it's totally Seventh Son.
I'm just like, how did not one of us go, oh, we probably shouldn't do that dun 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 thing? Oh, that's exactly what Iron Maiden did.
Yep.
Hey,
I'm not wrong, right?
Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Right.
Not in the fucking music business. But
no.
Yeah.
One of the names you also dropped a little bit ago was Jim Hayward, and I know he had Slammy Productions, and you all worked a lot when it came to the Slammy Awards and other things that Jim may have had his hand in. So how did you first meet Jim, and talk about some of your memories of the Slammies and other types of gigs that you did where Jim had a hand in it?
Well, wasn't Jim always like with Rape to Ape? He was
pretty much running the show for those guys. I mean,
yeah. So we saw Jim all the time in those shows, and we just became friends. And Chad, you could probably speak more on that than I could. But it's, as far as the Slammy stuff goes, I mean, that was his baby, and it was such a.
Did Glenn Richards introduce us to him?
Yes, that's exactly right. And because Glenn Richards,
we have to mention Glenn as well.
Yeah,
Glenn was the guy that played it on the radio for the first time. So,
and for those that are not familiar with Glenn Richards, who is Glenn?
Glenn is a local DJ for WSHE, I think
103.5.
And he had a local band show, and we became friends with him. He played our music. That's how we got the Treehouse gig, because we were on that show, and we actually did it in studio with him once or twice. And we would be always happy to hear the local bars and places advertise, and they'd always advertise on that show, and they would advertise, Amboog-A-Lard's playing, and the crowds would double, triple in size, and that was all just really, him. I mean, he would have us come in the day of the show and be on the radio talking or pre-recorded or whatever, and he dropped Amboog-A-Lard tunes all the time on his show. So he was a big part of the
exposure, for sure.
Awareness and the exposure of the band. Yeah.
Oh, he was a big part of the local scene as far as getting stuff going out there. I mean, he had a hand in getting, probably Saigon on the radio early on before, you know,
He's
some of their
definitely-
early demo recordings and stuff of that nature. And of course, then you've also got Amy over at WKPX playing the her metal show over on the Piper High School radio station.
Right.
She definitely did a lot to get the music out there as well.
And I remember
But,
down to the University of Miami to do an interview on the air once too, on their
right.
station. But yeah, man,
But that's how, going back to Slammies, you know, those that
I do believe that he
idea.
did introduce us to Jim Hayward, if I'm not mistaken. Jim might be able to provide some clarity. I don't know, but I don't recall exactly how it happened.
No, I was just saying his that the whole idea behind the Slammies was, you know, really cool at the time because it really kind of pulled the community together. I mean, you know, we kind of had our own little clique in Coral Springs of metalheads and bands and whatnot. But then he kind of opened the door, being, you know, he was based in West Palm. And next thing you know, he's having the Slammy show, and we're having bands from Miami play. Like, didn't we? Like, I know that like Puya's played.
Puya.
And, I can't remember.
It's true. It's true. That did kind of like grow the community, or just like maybe like mend it together, like the West Palm bands, the Broward bands, and the Miami bands.
Even definitely unified the South Florida music scene and community.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we have to give Jim credit for that for sure.
Absolutely.
And it was really cool because, you know, we got to be friends with these other bands, and then we would go up to West Palm and Miami and play, and they would come and play with us. So it was a cool community, and I think that's probably half the reason like the Pit got started in West Palm Beach and all that stuff. So yeah, props to Hayward. That's super cool. Yeah.
And you all won quite a bit when it came to awards, whether it be from just South Florida as a whole or perhaps the Slammies. So how did you all feel about that? And just did any have special place in in your heart as far as what you can remember from those experiences?
I remember the first Slammy show we played, and it was awesome. It was at Button South, I think, right? And it was just like a celebration of like what we all like did and believed in, and then to get, you know, to win and get recognized, it was always amazing. Yes. Because the competition was fierce. I mean, these bands were all fucking great, and they were all awesome musicians. I mean, think about some of the guys that we played with in those bands. The musicianship was stellar, and you know, and
incredible bunch of musicians.
Yeah. So yeah, to be recognized amongst
peers,
those guys was always super special. But it was kind of weird that one year we didn't win Best Band. We won every other award.
That was our Jethro Tull experience.
That was
right.
But it's fine. I think Ray Cake won that year. Someone like that. They were fucking incredible. They were an incredible band. But it was always fun. Jordy would always have the weirdest shit to say on stage when he won like best guitarist or rhythm guitarist, and he'd go up there and cluck like a chicken or something. But, kind of like Alex Lifeson at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
What is it? This blah blah blah, but
but yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be awarded best of anything in that group was always super cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's cool to be recognized and honored for something that you'll do for free and you love. You know, other people acknowledge
we did it for free.
It's even cooler, like, you know, 25, 30 years down the road, people still say to me, you know, hey, like, you know, you guys helped me, you know, through all these different horrible times in my life. And you know, it's a gratifying feeling, and it's very humbling to hear that.
Yeah, I still get people. Yeah, still people contact me on Facebook and begging me for copies of A New Hope or the demo or.
Yes, and
because of how important the music was to them, and I'm like, that's awesome. So we're happy to finally get to re-release this record and give everybody a good memory. So,
and let's talk about that. That's again perfect, because you think about A New Hope, and this is now an opportunity for those who may not have ever owned a physical copy and have wanted one It is being reissued on CD, but also very special for the first time on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be released on Thrashback Records, which is based in Fort Lauderdale. So talk about how that all came about with A New Hope finally getting a reissue after all of these decades.
Well, it should have been sooner. I'll say that because for me, it was hard to believe that it was 30 years ago, just a couple of years ago. Now it's 32 years ago.
Right.
And life just gets in the way of, your past. And, we're just busy. And, Eric, who runs Thrashback, was always a fan. And,
He's there at the beginning.
Yeah.
He was at the Club Soda show.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, so he's been part of this family forever. And, he wanted to do it. And then there was another label, Dive Bomb, that wanted to do
Dive
it.
Bomb. Yeah.
And
I think Dive Bomb did the Raped Ape reissue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We were talking to them, and we just couldn't see eye to eye on some things. So I basically told Dan, I was like, "Listen, we got to give this to Eric. He's the guy. Like, he's the right guy for the job. I mean, he loves the band. He's been there since the beginning, and it would only be right to give him the shot to re-release this."
Right. And Matt over at Dive Bomb was like, I met him a few years back going to Prog Power every year, and he was there, and he would be there distributing his wares as well as a fan, and we hit it off, and he would just always be like, "I want to put A New Hope out. I want to put A New Hope out," and it was like, I said, there's so much involved with getting it done, and I think Dan can probably go into all the technical side of what had to happen and why it had to happen, so I'll throw it over to him. But
it's all my fault.
Matt definitely
all my fault.
kind of lit a fire under me to light the fire under Dan and Chad and say, "Come on, let's do this. Let's get this out.
Absolutely, yeah." He unfortunately the deal didn't work out to put it on his label, but he really was the reason we're doing this. So sorry, but it just for whatever reason didn't work out, and Eric was right there, and he was like, "Hello." So
we have history with Eric, though, because Eric, post A New Hope, we had attempted to do some stuff at Gled Studios where he was working with Gary Strider at the time as an engineer. So we had done a lot of recording, some of the stuff that didn't really see the light of day, but he was part of that project. And so, we already kind of had that relationship with him as well. So
that's true. That's a bad part of our history.
Yeah.
Eric Strider.
But it was a good part because we met Eric. So
everything happens for a reason. So I guess the reason for that nonsense.
Yeah, 35 years later. That's a slow reason. But
right.
So that's true. That's very true. That's very true. I remember when we released The Wounded on Metal Massacre with Metal Blade. Was it Metal
Blade? Brian Slagle.
And Slagle was one of the guys who said straight up to me, "Change the name and I'll sign the band." And I said, "You signed a band called the Goo Goo Dolls. Who the fuck are you?"
Right.
He was like, "Well, we'll see what happens with the Goo Goo Dolls." And I'm like, "Ugh." And then Hoobastank came out, and I'm like, "What? What the fuck?"
Yeah, it's like, okay, our name isn't that weird, is it?
But Brian Slagle did put us, and I think Raped Ape too, on that record.
Yeah, although Raped Ape did change their name to Pain God.
Did see? Didn't work. They should. Well, I mean, as the times change,
right?
Words become.
What are your memories of some of the origins of A New Hope?
Wow. Okay, so we played a Chad. You've got to jump in here if I'm not 100% accurate. We played a festival, South by Southwest or something, and was that in Atlanta or was that in
Atlanta?
That was in New Orleans.
Oh, no, New Orleans.
Before that, this was not the same show because
we went to Atlanta for something.
The one in New Orleans was after because Pat, you were in the band at the time. And that was
Alan's
Charlie's, because I remember going when I was in New Orleans like a year ago. I went by there just to see it. It's still there.
Still there.
But anyway, so we did a showcase somewhere.
We played a show at a laundromat.
And there was this big, I remember it was a big stage, and George was nowhere to be found. And he showed up, and the drums had no heads on them. So we were all in the parking lot with drum keys, changing drum heads, and he had that girlfriend with him with the Cadillac convertible, if you remember.
Oh my God.
But it just started to get to the point where George and I weren't on the same page.
It was just not it was not manageable anymore.
It wasn't manageable anymore. No disrespect, because I love the guy like a brother, and I always will. But it just wasn't working. And we were having trouble also at that point with Bob on bass, and he was, kind of his life was changing, and he was moving into a completely different area of profession than being in a heavy metal band. But so you just feel it coming apart at the seams, and me and Jordy and Chad were like, we got to do something different, and we didn't have a bass player, and we didn't really have a drummer anymore. And so I got home from that show, wherever the fuck it was. We played the show, and it sucked, and nobody was there. No one.
It was in Atlanta, in a laundromat.
Atlanta, yeah. And
I had people doing laundry behind me while we were playing. Yeah?
I don't remember the laundry thing. Are you sure you're not thinking of a Rush concert?
I was like, aren't you thinking of a Rush concert?
I'm sorry, man. It's all their fault. They announced a tour, and it's been a while.
Anyway, yeah. So to make a long story longer, I called John and I said, we got to talk. And I'm like, this is what's up. I felt like at that point, I was a hefty 23 years old, and I'm like, I want to put together like the ultimate version of this band and make a record, and let's just put everything we've got into it, write some new songs, and take the band on this interesting direction that Jordy was really pushing, because Jordy got like heavy into Pink Floyd and some of that other kind of stuff from the 70s. And John was in a band called Type Zero, and I'm like, I know this is going to break everyone's hearts. We're going to break up your band, we're going to break up my band, and then we're going to put together a new band. And we did it.
Yep.
And Jordy switched to bass and really found himself in the instrument. He loves playing bass. I mean, and I took on all of the guitar parts, which was probably insane. Because if you listen to the record, there's so much guitar work on that record. And there's acoustic guitars, there's clean channel guitars, there's lead guitar, there's rhythm guitar, and it was all me. Like, so I was in the studio with Jeremy for a long time, because so basically John agreed, right? So, jump in.
Yep.
And
yeah, I think what at this point, and what's important for people to know too, is like Dan and I and Jordy, for the most, we were always hanging out together outside of our bands.
Yeah, I mean, I spent tons of time with you in the record store just bullshitting.
Well, because I worked at Uncle Sam's, so we had that was always a big plus for getting to promote your bands, is working in the local record store. But on top of that, we were all into the same stuff. The once again, going back to the fun stuff of it, that Anthrax made it okay to talk about in your band or display. We liked Aliens, and we liked Star Wars, and we liked all the what people would call the geeky stuff, or whatever you want to call it. And those were my friends. I have my band friends, and then I had the people I hang out with when I'm not with my band. And that was really the case at that time. Every night you could pretty much count on Dan, Jordy, Chad, and our other group coming over to my apartment, and we'd just hang out and watch movies and, talk shit and whatever. And so when Dan finally was like, hey, I think I'm done with George. I really want to do this. He came to me with this idea, sold it to me, and I'm just like, you know what? It makes sense because these are the guys that I'm hanging out with all the time. Now I'm going to be in a band with them too, and we can really, take it to the next level. So that was really what sold me on the idea.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is great because these are the guys that I hang out with away from music, but we're also influenced by the same music. So now let's make music together. And the opportunity to do that was like, I can't pass this up. I got to do it.
Yeah. And at that point in time, God, were we sharing a warehouse with you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero. And it was like,
Yep.
George moved his drums out and you moved your drums over. And it was like, oh,
yep. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Exactly what happened. We slid the drums across the other side of the warehouse to the other.
And then we had to find another kick drum for you.
Right.
So like, you gotta double kick, bro. And you're like, okay.
No, I think I was already playing double kick by then. I had actually added it towards the end of Panic.
Oh shit! Okay, I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, because I had double bass all through the Type 0 stuff, but
But
talk about the recording of A New Hope. You recorded that with Jeremy Staska at Studio 13, and Jeremy's been a guest on the podcast. I'll put the link to Jeremy's episode in the description of this one. So,
if you like watching this, then you should definitely go watch that one. It's great.
I loved it. Yeah.
What are your memories of recording with Jeremy?
24 tracks on a 16-track board.
128 tracks and a 16-track.
Jeremy, I mean, being now that I live in that world of audio engineering, what he pulled off on that record is nothing short of a fucking miracle. He was just the guy. He got the band. He understood what we were doing. He understood the sound we wanted. He mixed us live. He was a friend. We cut a couple of tracks. Wasn't the Wounded cut there for Metal Massacre?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And we did Eye Inside there. God,
he made the band sound huge.
And he just got it. He was a friend, of course. Fucking
fellow musician
and all that.
We played shows with Sinful Lust too.
Yeah, of course. And I remember approaching him and I was like, we want to do a full length record, like 10 songs, whatever, and whatever it ended up being. And, but we want to block the studio out. We don't want to come when you have openings. We just want to block the studio out for like a month. And he was like, okay, Jeremy, he's like, okay, sounds cool.
Right.
It was like, we scrounged up a couple $1,000, most of it coming from our buddy, John Zenos, who was a huge Amboog-A-Lard supporter and a good friend of ours.
Best man at my wedding.
Yeah. Like I said,
I was just the best man at his wedding in Peru.
And so, the Zenos John and his brothers were always, there for us. They were
absolutely.
They were good guys and just fucking metal warriors.
Nick was my drum tech for years. Yep.
And
all for the love of it, all for helping us out, all for supporting, doing it out of the love.
Exactly. So anyway, Jeremy was happy to do it, and we had written Beyond Insanity and Medicine Man maybe at the very end of the George era, and I think John came in and finished those songs. They weren't done.
Yep.
And then we decided, and then Jordy came in with the musical idea for A Matter of Honor, which was like, oh, we're going to tune down. So we were tuning drop D for the shit. We never did that before.
I always wondered why I like all these guys that tune down and drop D these days.
So that song and the title track are both in drop D. But then we were like, we don't have enough fucking songs. so we kind of like were thinking about the concept of the record and what it meant, and it's A New Hope. It's our little Rage Against the Machine, if you will. And so that's why Art of Sin's on the record. And that's why Winds is on the record, because those are both rebellious songs about looking and finding yourself inside of the truth of who you are. And they fit more than like Picture Perfect did, which was a commentary on media, or Overthrown, which was not, Sean wrote Overthrown. No, I didn't write Overthrown. So I didn't feel like those, even though people are like, well, why the hell aren't these songs on the record? It's like, because it's a new record. But and then we had Trouble sitting around. Chad, Jordy, and I wrote Trouble.
The first thing we ever did with my synth when I bought it,
right?
We're like, let's make a song and see what this thing can do.
Right, and so we were at that point.
We programmed it all out, and we wrote the song called Trouble that actually heard the record.
And it was our wink at Nine Inch Nails, Ministry, Skinny Puppy, all that stuff that you loved, that Chad loved. John, you probably did too.
Oh yeah.
John, I mean, credit to John. John turned me on to a lot of industrial music. I was already into Nine Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy, and John showed me the deeper bands that I didn't really know about, like Nights Are Ebb and people like that. They were making electronic music that wasn't being combined with metal in any way at the time. And then like Ministry came around, and Ministry is a metal band with drum machines. I mean,
Yep.
I mean, skeptical commentary, very similar feel, and like a little more political and a little more topical, and that's where we were getting and where we were going with some of this stuff.
And I remember when we were going to do the record, though, we had a really, and I don't know, John, you might remember this better than me, but did we ever cut drums on Trouble and then just not use them? Or
yes.
I thought so, because it was like, should we kind of tie it sonically together with a real drum set?
Right.
And for some reason, we didn't go with it.
Well, because eventually we did because we started playing it, figuring out how to play it live.
Right. Right.
Because we went back and God, I'm almost, I thought now we did that. I think you're thinking of when we tried to do that when we were doing the stuff with Eric and Gary.
Oh,
yeah, Strider. We tried to redo that with a real drum.
We tried to redo. That's when we did that.
Oh,
yeah. It was supposed to be a departure, and I'm kind of glad we left it the way it is. Like even the vocal on that song is like all through distortion pedals and some of my best screaming.
Yeah.
So and then we wrote like like Do or Do Not and Disease, and those two songs, as far as being a songwriter and a musician and a collaborator with these two gentlemen and Jordy, were probably high points in my career as a musician.
Yeah,
because they were just so different.
Yep.
And I'm playing guitar solos that sound like David Gilmour. Like, what? On a Strat? Like, what? And it was, and it'd be cool if we go through the songs and like pause and go, oh, this part, but it was just a different approach, and it had a lot to do with John and John's musicality and letting Jordy drive the boat a lot. Jordy really drove a lot of the boat. And then when I wrote Disease and I brought it to the guys, they looked at me like I had three heads.
Look, I have to play piano.
This is going to be driven by a piano.
Mm-hmm.
And Chad's like, well, I guess I better start practicing. And it was, and he stepped up to the plate, learned the song. And I don't know, it was inspired by Russians from Sting with the melody that just continues throughout the whole song. Because at that point in time was a huge into Police and Sting and that stuff, and just trying to figure out Peter Gabriel and trying to figure out how to make that metal. And so that's where those songs came from. And then I, once again, I think I commented on this with the interview I did for the written interview, not to just blow smoke up John's ass, but I'm going to. The fucking drum parts on that record are amazing.
Yes.
The support that you give the songs, and God, it's so hard to think about going back in time and sitting in the warehouse and working these songs out, because I don't remember. I really don't.
Right.
But when I go back and I listen to it, it's just deliberate. It's done deliberately. You're supporting the song, you're supporting the vocal, and whatever. I mean, a lot of times, like little tricks and turns would come from the drum parts. The guitars would just do that. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to do that too, and back and forth. But man, listen to Disease, listen to A Matter of Honor. I mean, those are your Amboog-A-Lard songs.
Yes, they're your songs, John.
And
You're thundering, pounding, insanely technical. Always service the music completely.
So, and it was never about you. It was always about the song and about the band. And God bless you for that, for my friend. But I had gone to a friend of mine who's a drummer, really, really, really good drummer, and I wanted to redo Solitude. Right, I think I talked to you about this, and I played it for him. He goes, "I can't fucking play that drum part." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Blah, 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 you know. And then I went back and I like listened to it. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's fucking really hard." And once again, just I know Solitude never saw the light of day, and Wounded kind of sort of did, but there was never an argument about, well, I want to play this. No. There was never, and believe me, before you, there were.
No, it was always about the song with me. Always has been. It wasn't about let me show you what I can do on the drums. It's about the whole picture. Always was.
Right, and that's to me what makes you a special drummer, was that you always were able to see the final outcome and played for that. And not a lot of people in the metal world can do that. A lot of metal is look at me, and there was a lot of look at me in Amboog-A-Lard, and I was right in the middle of it. I was a problem. I was part of it. I can shred like Alex Skolnick or like Kirk Hammett, but when we did A New Hope, we were like, we're not doing any of that, right? I mean, the guitar parts were so different. Like, once again, we're in drop D. God, imagine how cool Overthrown would be in drop D. Anyway, or even an E flat, but bringing those songs to you guys, especially Disease, which is such a personal lyrical song for me.
Yep.
And Do or Do Not, even, Jesus Christ, it was just like the right people in the right room to make that song. I don't think I could have made that record with anybody else.
Right.
When you all weren't at your instrument in the recording studio with Jeremy, talk about just the vibe in the studio with all you guys there, hanging out. Any fun stories from that time?
Lots of beer.
Lots of Domino's pizza. Funny story. When we were mixing, I want to say A Matter of Honor, and we couldn't get it right. And we didn't have automation and Pro Tools and all this shit.
We had
everybody's hands.
No, everybody was in the studio.
You hold these knobs, you hold these other.
Yeah, like in the middle, like with fader. The faders, and I'm like, all
standing on a chair in the control room while everyone else is standing in there trying to turn a knob at a certain time.
And shit, like, that's what John said, 24 channels and a 16 channel, because it was recorded on 16 track 1-inch. And normally you record on 24 channel 2-inch, but that's the machine Jeremy had, and it's actually a really great machine. I wish I had it, because then I could have transferred everything if I had the tapes. But anyway, I just remember we were mixing mixing Matter of Honor, and a lot of the channels shared instruments. Like, all right, through the verse, this is a guitar, and then in the bridge, this is some wacko shit Chad did, and then it goes back to a solo, or it's a harmony vocal on one channel.
Right.
And so we had to know where those were, and that's why we had to be helping him move the faders around, and we fucked that up. And Jeremy was so fucking mad.
Many
he got up, he kicked his fan across the fucking room, and he's like, "Fuck you guys!" I mean, this is Jeremy, and Jeremy's like the coolest dude in the world, and he's like, "I got to go home and take care of something, then I'll come back." Right. And he came back, and he was much more mellow. And
if you recall, we asked him to not partake while working with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we encouraged him to partake that day.
Yeah, that day that got thrown out the window.
Yeah, that day that got thrown out the window because he needed to do what he needed to do to be in the right place to deal with our asses, because we're horrible. And we were really pushing the capability of the studio. Like, all of Chad's keys and synths and samplers hit a submix board. And then that board was fed in a stereo pair or 2 stereo pairs to the main board. And of course, when you're dealing with a drum set like John's, it's like a fucking 12 microphones, 13 microphones. And then we had to bounce drum parts down. you know, that kind of stuff. It was a chore to do. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, but there was tension in the air because Geordie was already pretty much out the door. Jeremy talked about it on his podcast, and I was like, yeah. I mean, he was like, oh, the guys didn't even know. I'm like, we knew.
Yeah.
We didn't know for certain that he was leaving. Like, we didn't know there was a decision made.
We got
there was never a decision made. We were never told I'm leaving until after the record came back and done, and the inserts were done, and there's his big old face right in the middle, like he wanted. And then he left, but he was already on his way out of the band because the opportunity for him to play with Manson was, I mean, you can't pass.
You have to say yes.
So of course he did what was right for him, and in a lot of ways it hurt us, and it hurt me because Geordie was my songwriting partner. I mean, and one of my best friends, and I'll never really recovered from that. Although we did write some good fucking songs after he left, too, didn't we? I mean, I think we did. So yeah, it was interesting because the band was all in. You know, I was all in, Chad was all in, John was all in, Jeremy was all in because we blocked this whole studio out, and Geordie was not. And that, not that his performance shows that, because I think his performance on the record is beautiful. I think and his writing contributions that led up the year leading up to the recording sessions were very important to the record, but he was not all in at that point. And it created, maybe it created some tension that was good. I don't know. I mean, because I think that we did basics, drum bass guitar, right, together, like rhythm guitar parts. I don't know if we kept any of it or we just overdubbed it overwise.
I think it was just dummy track. I don't think we kept any of it. It was just lay it down.
We did scratch tracks.
Well, I remember when we started recording and we had your kit set up and mic'd, and it was like, you were like, I need to play with somebody. This is like, because you were just like, I can't just play Beyond Insanity by myself.
Right.
So I'm like, all right. Then we set up a guitar rig and I played with you.
Right. And that's how we laid it down, because there's no click track. There's no, we laid them down live. We just didn't keep the track of you playing. That was just so I could get my parts down. Yeah.
Because the guitar parts were, I mean, I know that as much as the rest of you could be at the studio for all those guitar trackings, so that was a lot.
Yeah. You were.
Yep. John had 5 jobs and a family already.
And if I wasn't working, I was there.
if you weren't working, you're fucking there. And so, I mean, the recording process was really super cool because we didn't have, like, when we did the Morris Sound stuff, it was like, oh, you guys have 5 hours, and then you ran out of money. And Jeremy just let us, and we'd show up at like, 6-7 o'clock at night and stay there until the sun came up making this record. And then John would go to work.
I did the intro for the record at like 6 a.m.
Yeah. So, I mean, if Geordie were here, he could say, no, that's bullshit. I was fucking in. Maybe I'm wrong. But in hindsight, it wasn't too long after the record was done and the art was done and it all came back that he walked. So, and Jeremy shed some light on that in his interview.
Right.
Yeah, he definitely clarified a few things for sure.
Yeah.
And just thinking about the final process of the album, A New Hope, Rod Fuller is who mastered it from Fuller Sound, and also the artwork. So before we get to the artwork and unpacking that, how did you all get connected with Rod Fuller?
Tovar. And
he had good relationships with this gentleman that worked for Island Music. We didn't even tell that story yet.
Oh God, Chris Blackwell.
Yeah.
Signed U2, signed Anthrax. Anthrax was looking, not to jump back in time here, but for a second, real quick, Anthrax was leaving Island and going to Epic. I think Metallica was on Epic or Elektra.
Elektra. They went to Elektra for the Sound of White Noise.
Right. And so Chris Blackwell, who's a fucking music legend, looking for a metal band to replace them, and Tovar brought him
to see us Washington Square
in Miami with Marilyn Manson when we were opening. And this is when Marilyn Manson started getting a ton of traction, and they were getting bigger and bigger following. And so we played, there was a showcase for Chris Blackwell. So we played, and then I was standing with Tovar, Chris Blackwell, and Manson was playing, and Chris Blackwell walked out. And because Tovar was managing Manson at the time too. He had both of us. And we walked out behind him, and he goes, I don't get that. He goes, but your band, I fucking get. And I'm like, oh, shit. It's like,
right.
And I remember he took the tape and he put it in his shirt pocket, and he went, we'll be in touch. And they were never in touch. So that's a sidebar on how
right.
to, but
lots of false starts.
Yeah.
He says he loves it. He says he loves it.
And I mean, just to get to play a show for a music industry legend like Chris Blackwell was,
he's an icon. I mean,
Island
Records,
Marley, U2. I mean, his
Peter Gabriel.
His signings are unbelievable. And of course, Anthrax, which was like, hey, we're kind of like that. Stupider name. But yeah,
so we got into Fuller Sound with because of Tovar and basically all his contacts out in the Miami area.
Yeah, and because Fuller Sound is part of Criteria in Miami, and
Barry Gibbs,
and Marilyn Manson was in the big studio next door mixing Portrait of an American Family, and we were mastering A New Hope. And I remember Brian came in and he said, "Can you come in and listen?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm listening, and he's like, "I fucking hate it," and I'm like, "I hate it too." And that's the record that they scrapped, and then they redid.
They ended up like firing the engineer in the middle of the recording process. I think it was like Raleigh Mosselman or something. And
so you could see, yeah,
and ended up just doing the record pretty much.
Right. So you could see at that point in time how Amboog-A-Lard and Marilyn Manson were really intertwined. And we were
in the studio. I mean, true story. We were in the studio mastering their album, and I walked to the hallway to go to the bathroom. I walked into Marilyn Manson, and I walked into him in the hallway. I was like, "Oh, we're over here." It's like, "Oh, we're an A working on our album here."
They had a budget. We didn't.
They had a much bigger budget than we did.
But anyway, so yeah, so that was super cool. I remember going into the vault room with Rod and seeing like the masters for Screaming for Vengeance and like
Defenders of the Faith,
and just like metal masterpieces that
stuff that those guys worked on. I mean, millions and hundreds of millions of records sold.
And so for us to be in the room with him and getting to do that final musical step with him was really special and really, really cool. And
I missed that part. I was at work.
I remember you weren't there. I think it was just me and you, Chad. I think
yeah, it was just you two.
And that's when we had to decide like where to put the indexes and cut the songs, because this record plays through, right? And so that's why on vinyl it's going to be weird. We still haven't decided what ends.
How we're going to chop it up.
How we're going to chop it. We got to figure that out. We got to talk about that, guys.
Yeah.
But on a CD, of course, it just plays through. But on vinyl, you got to turn it over. And but the vinyl thing, I think will be special, and it's going to be green.
It's got to be
so
green.
awesome.
But yeah, the Fuller sound part was cool, and he was great. He made the record sound finished. He made it sound finished.
He polished it. Anything that we couldn't figure out, he fixed.
And so going back to talking about the remaster with all the tools in the toolbox that we have now, I mean, it was like, I want to make this record sound huge without fucking with the integrity of it. And while we had to do some edits around some samples and some things that are horribly illegal nowadays, that weren't maybe in 1993, but I think we got to a good place, and I would do the edits and I'd send them to the guys. I'm like, what do you guys think? Does this suck? And John would be like, no, it's fucking cool. And Chad would go, you got to do what you got to do. Because I would cut out all his shit.
I definitely got chopped. It's okay because it all makes sense and it all still plays.
Well, like a matter of honor starts.
The intention is all still there. So
yeah, that's what I was really, and that's probably why the record got delayed so many times, because I was like, I can't take the samples out because I don't have the masters.
Right.
And so basically, like A Matter of Honor, if you listen to the original, it's Worf from Star Trek. We just recorded.
We just lifted dialogue right out of the episode.
I mean, that's all right, we're going to just throw that at the beginning of the song. Fuck it.
And so on, but on the re-release, I listened to what Chad did for the whole underscore of it, and I recreated it. And then I'm Worf on the new one.
Right.
I'm the one going, it's a matter of honor and loyalty to your oath. It's me. So we rebuilt the beginning of it to make it sound as much like the original as possible. And like Medicine Man, we cut out.
I don't know how Dan did any of this. He's a wizard.
What happened to the masters?
They sat in my closet forever. And when I moved to Orlando, I threw them away. So yeah, it's sad.
Ouch.
I had the masters for A New Hope, and I had a bunch of 2-inch that we had all the stuff from Morrisound and from
recorded over it in Gled.
We recorded over it because we didn't have money to buy new tape, so we recorded over it. I'm like, well, I've got a bunch of 2-inch, and yeah, I mean, I carried them around for, I mean, a long time. And then eventually I was like, what am I doing with this shit? Nobody has this tape machine anymore. And Jeremy probably is like, I do.
Right.
Yeah. So, and the truth of the matter is that even if we did have the 16-inch reels, a lot of Chad's stuff was combined. It was bounced down. So we couldn't have disassembled a lot of it anyway.
Right.
Like, it was painful to chop off Yoda at the beginning of Do or Do Not, but yes, sorry, chop off Vader's breathing at the end of A New Hope, stuff like that. But, in this litigious society that we live in, there's no way we could have left that stuff on there. And, I do a lot of work for Disney, and I can't afford to have them coming after me.
Don't shit where you eat.
Yeah, exactly. So, but a lot of it we redid, like that, the beginning of Medicine Man we played with. We left the intro fine because this is mostly all PD stuff, and who's going to know what you put in there? But I mean, there was like Totally Insane and Beyond Insanity, which was from Blade Runner or something.
Totally Insane is from Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now. And so I re-record. I managed to like strip it out mostly, and then re-recorded it the best I could imitate
Martin Sheen.
And so that's me going totally insane, and so stuff like that. But there's stuff in there too, like when the Joker smashes the light bulb in the first Batman movie, that psh, 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 that's still fucking in there. That's Warner Brothers. Fuck them. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so we did what we had to do. But the biggest, ugliest cut was the bridge of Beyond Insanity, which had R2.
Jesus,
clear as day.
What was I thinking?
Freaking out, and
when you get shot by the Jawa,
and just straight on cut those.
The whole midsection was like literally
8 bars of it, but then I had to pull a little. I had to become John for a minute there and program a little drum fill to get us back into the next part, and
right.
It came out okay. It's cool. It works. It works. So yes, do I wish I could have left that cool ass drum and bass?
That was so cool.
It was the coolest shit. And then John brought the rest of the band back in, and we came in with those cool 9 chords and shit. But there's no way I'm releasing a record with full on R2D2. So chop. But I think it's still great. The intent of the song is still there.
Sure. And it's great
Agreed.
though. It's great though that people have the chance to hear, and there's already songs available that people can check out the remastered
and the
version.
Thrashback YouTube. He's posted a few of the remastered songs.
Yeah, I think Beyond Insanity was one of them. That he dropped, and that's
He put Winds up as well.
Yeah, Winds was Artisan. Did we fuck with Artisan? I don't know, but
little bit,
maybe a little bit, right? But yeah, and like shortened a lot of stuff, like the like we're doing this for like 14 minutes. And John's like, like, all right, can we get to the fucking point here?
Another thing that's super iconic about the A New Hope release is the album art. And it's something that really stands out. And I want to just hear from you in terms of how the artwork came to be and just some of your own personal thoughts on the artwork all these years later and now with the reissue coming up.
We found a series of trading cards in comic exchange, and we decided to look through them, and we found a piece that we really just, this is the one, guys. Like, we have to use this. So how do we get it? How do we get it? So I reached out to legendary album artist Jim Warren's agent and licensed the piece for the album. I mean, he was super cool. He let us use it for T-shirts, and then we had to, get the slide for the piece to re-release it. So Dan had to use his contacts and connections in the industry to reach out to him. And we found him. He found the piece for us. It took him a minute. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate that. We love you.
Thank you, Jim.
And just so cool.
And he's such a cool person. He was just like, you guys just do it.
Because we had expressed the fact that we wanted to not only re-release the CD but release it on vinyl, and there was no language in the contract that covered that, and we didn't want to step on his toes, and we didn't want to do anything that was disrespectful, because he's a effing legend. And right. I mean, Bob Seger's Against the Wind album cover, that's him. There's so much amazing work that he's a
legendary surrealist. I mean, still does a lot of stuff with Disney.
And Chad, if you remember, he did a signing at Disney, right. And we went and we brought A New Hope album covers, and he remembered. He was like, "Oh yeah, you guys." I mean, this was 10 years ago, but and then when we approached him for the re-release and we're finally able to get through his agent and get to him personally, he was like, absolutely, guys, no problem, you guys have my total blessing to re-release the record. And so, thank God that he was that cool, because then we'd be in this conundrum of needing an album cover,
right. But
the A New Hope, the concept was, once again, about rebirth, about refreshing, about hope and change in the world, right? And the album cover being the two children, which we always thought was like Luke and Leia, because we're there standing in front of this gaping mouth of society, basically. Because the art piece is called The Feeding, and it's in that thought train what Jim was thinking, that we were feeding our children to this machine. And that's like, God, that's like Art of Sin, right? That's like, that's like Matter of Honor, right? And so when we saw that piece, it was like, holy shit, this is just so representative of what we're trying to say here as artists.
Right.
And then through just a little bit of luck and trying real hard and not given up, we got his blessing to do it, and we paid him something, but it wasn't much, and he wasn't about the money for him. But then we wanted to keep the Amboog-A-Lard, like everyone, the Amboog-A-Lard that everyone knew and loved. We wanted the Fat Lady, we wanted Goldberg's art, so that's why we turned to him to have her holding the credits, and to have him, then he had the idea of doing all of this, like H.R. Giger, artwork that crawls around
the edges of the album art. Is all John's.
Right. All John's. And the photograph was my sister took, and it was just outside of our warehouse, in front of another warehouse door.
Yep.
And those guys had a lot more hair.
Yeah.
And
it's the only place I can grow it now.
You're still metal as fuck. And for some reason we inverted the picture and made it to a negative, just because I think that it was still just the same concept of the record, of things being fucked up and things not being clear. Right. And the hope for the future. So that we weren't like, hey, we're rock and roll guys. We just wanted to put this weird image, and that's probably why we put Jordy in the front. But
getting any weirder than that.
Yeah, there's some really cool photos the Facebook page cover. That's from that same day, and there's a couple good
Right.
photos of me and of
We
Jordy.
we will be throwing up an Instagram page too. Something,
and Eric has all this stuff, so he's going to make a big 20-page thing.
The booklet is going to be something for you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. And so, with flyers and set lists and all the stuff that we had kept all these years in our boxes of lard.
Yeah.
And it's going to be,
we went through the treasure trove of old flyers and articles and interviews and just everything, and I scanned everything and just sent a whole bunch of stuff to him. So
he is the keeper of the archive now for sure.
Yeah.
What's up?
Eric is the keeper of the archive now for sure. He has it all.
He has it all.
Everything that wasn't thrown away he has it.
He has it. It's cool. And then, maybe when we're done with this one, we'll put out the other stuff, but that might be a little more heavy lifting dealing with the other guys, but we'll see.
And because so many years has passed, right? We're talking over 30 years.
I know.
So much has happened in everyone's life, I imagine, in these past 30 plus years. So what was it like for you individually to go back and really revisit A New Hope?
Wow. Well, for me, like I was saying earlier, it just made me remember the intent of the record. It made me remember the deliberate nature, how the songs were written, how Jordy brought in a lot of this, 70s Pink Floyd stuff. I'm like, the bridge of A Matter of Honor is a Pink Floyd song. And I remember
the keyboard part is a Rick Wright sound from Pink Floyd.
And exactly
a la Rick Wright, Pink Floyd. One of my influences.
Right. And so when Jordy was like, how do we do this? And I'm like, we just do it, because it doesn't sound like Pink Floyd because it's fucking metal and John's playing drums. So, but for me, revisiting it made me remember how deliberate we were as artists in writing this record, the message that the three of us expressed through the lyrics, and just the musicianship. Not to I would blow John's smoke up his ass more, but the drumming is just brilliant, and the way that you locked with Jordy and the way Jordy approached the bass parts and I was able to just take a completely different approach to guitars and vocals, and I actually sang on the record. God forbid, this wasn't like going wah, and then adding Chad in with all of his textures and samples, and gave it this industrial edge to it,
and a lot of which you could actually hear now.
Yeah,
right.
And that's an interesting thing. Is the remaster, the plugin makes the keys like a little bit more prominent. Like, this is cool. Right. And in bringing a song like Disease in again and taking the main thing off of a guitar and putting it on a piano, those deliberate actions and those experimental actions were what really came back to me when I listened to the record again.
What I can add is I am so excited for people to finally hear this shit because there's so much, as much as we made a little drop in a big pond, and for once I can't wait for internationally, there's people who know about us, but there's going to be people who have never heard this. They're going to hear it and get to hear what we did, all the passion and effort that we poured into this. Is finally going to see the light of day in a bigger picture than we ever achieved back then. And that's what I'm so excited about, because for years I've been, I'll sit there and, because everybody's been posting A New Hope's been on YouTube for a million years, so like, somebody wants to hear what you sound like or this, or, oh, you played in a band? Yeah, here, check this out. And people are like, holy shit, that's you? And like, yeah, that was me. So to get that out there and actually complete, because to me, we're finally completing what we meant to do in the first place, is get this out there so that as many people can enjoy it and, and get out of it what we poured into it,
Right. And for to get to the end of the record, and it has like new life and new purpose, and it's just not sad.
Exactly.
Really cool, because for
Yep.
30 years you get to the end of the record and you go, oh, it's a really good record. Oh well. But now we're
Right.
like at the end of the record and we go, oh fuck man, we're gonna release this shit, and we're gonna,
Right.
to John's point, give it to the world again. We're gonna give it to the world in a bigger, newer, cooler way with multiple formats. And I guess at some point we'll stick it up on Spotify and everything too, and drop it every which way that you can get it after,
Right.
after we recoup. But yeah, Chad, you got thoughts on that?
For me, it was unfinished business for a long time,
That's the best way to put it.
and now the business is finished, and we're going to release it and unleash it on all of you, and hopefully you will enjoy it and take some of the joy that we took in redoing some of this stuff and making it special again for ourselves, and so we could present it to you guys in a format that I think it does it actual justice.
Agreed.
I think just the idea of the booklet is just enough to want to have a copy of this, to see a lot of the work that was put into it, pictures and flyers and all of those things that help to tell the story beyond just what's audible on the release itself.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely it's a celebration of the band without a doubt, because there's so much history there that wasn't in the original release, and I know a lot of the people who have expressed interest that as soon as this, I mean, I get people are blowing it up as soon as he put the Thrashback put the ads out that coming soon, this or that. I mean, I'm getting messages left and right from people. Let me know when it's out. Let me know when it's out. Let me know how I can get a copy. This, that. So, there's people who out of the woodwork or be like, I grew up with you guys. I can't wait to get this in. I lost my copy a million years ago or whatever. So that's going to be fun for people to have something that more than just the record. It also kind of encapsulates a lot more of the history of the band as a memento of that time in your life when you were in South Florida as a freaking teenager thrashing out in the Treehouse or one of those places. So it's fun.
Yeah, and to John's point, it is a celebration of the band, because I mean it does have Winds on it, it does have Art of Sin on it, it does pay homage to everybody who was ever in the band.
Yes.
It
was important that it did that, I think,
and especially now, because back in those days, it was bad blood. We were all pissed off at each other, but now it's like we're not. And for George to listen to Winds or listen to Art of Sin and hear John playing his part, but John played George's part. Those songs were not rewritten. Maybe there's a little bit of difference here, maybe a little bit of difference there, just because we revisited them. But and same with Barry, and those parts. Barry was a riff writer too and a songwriter too, so he had part in that. And even Bob Frank was, when we get to the other members of the band, had a huge part in the band in playing those songs. So it is a Amboog-A-Lard celebration, and that's the way I hope everyone can look at it, and that's why I hope everyone gives us the green light to re-release the other stuff too, including stuff that's never been released.
Right.
So
we'd love for you all to be able to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great getting a chance to just have you all on to share the story of Amboog-A-Lard, going from the earliest beginnings of how you all got connected, from rehearsal spaces to the origins of the name and the art. So much that we were able to unpack in this episode. It's just been a real honor to have you on to tell the story. And like so many others, I'm in the same camp, excited for the reissue, to have a copy on vinyl, be able to put on the turntable and hear the remastered songs. And it's a highly anticipated release, no doubt.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yep, absolutely. This has been it's been an honor just to know that people are still interested in what we did 30 some odd years ago. So thank you for hosting us and getting us together to reminisce and go back and relive some of these great moments in our past.
It's been a pleasure hanging out with you on here, man. This is an awesome thing you're doing.
Wonderful. As we get ready to close things out, I would love to give each of you the last word to take us home. So I'm going to turn it over first to Chad, and then we'll go over to John and wrap up with Dan. And Chad, the floor is yours.
Closing. This is a cathartic thing for me personally. Finally, like I said before, it's unfinished business that through the wonders of modern technology and Pro Tools, thank you, and Dan and his toy room over at TyFy Studios, we've been able to fix the stuff that would have been litigious and stuff like that, and present the album to you properly, the best that we can today with what we have, and this is what we got, and we hope you love it as much as we do.
Agreed. And to piggyback on that, I just want to put this out there. Dan, thank you for all the effort that you put in, because I know you're the one who had to get in there and twist the knobs and actually take a scalpel to some of your babies, so to speak, because, our songs are, that's what they are to us. And to be able to go in there and do what needed to be done so that we could bring this to the people, I'm just super excited for people to hear it. The cuts and the edits and the things that you did were just fantastic. I mean, you basically, pulled some wizardry, as Chad said, to take what we had to work with and get it to the point of where it's at now. And I'm super excited for all you people out there to finally hear and to enjoy what our intention was, which was to give you guys a just awesome piece of music that we poured our blood, sweat, and tears into, because it's what we wanted to make. And we wanted to give some hope out there, a new hope, so to speak. So thanks for having us, and I look forward to maybe some follow-up interviews after we get some reactions when the music comes out.
That'd be cool. I totally agree with what both of you guys just said. It's cathartic. It's necessary. It's closure. It's been an open wound in my life for 30 years. The way the band ended, the departure of Geordie, things weren't great. And this gives us a chance as humans to kind of close that door. And that's probably what's most important to me. The music, of course, but to be able to connect with, my brothers in metal here and talk about this has been, truly special. What amazes me, and I talked about this a little bit in the other interview, is just this staying power of the genre of metal. It's still relevant. It still matters. It's still really coming back to popularity in a new and different way, because the music industry has just completely changed. I mean, we lose MTV for real January 1, right? It's gone. And streaming and all that, but the testament to the fact that people still give a shit about us and about the art and music that we created is mind-blowing to me. And back in the day, I was sure as shit that we were the next big thing. And we weren't. But it kind of makes me feel like that again. Not that this is going to sell 1 million copies or change the world, but that, we're a good fucking band. And we were for real. And we poured all of everything that we had into these records and these songs. And not to get emotional here, but it's real special for me to be able to, like I said a minute ago, put on the record, get to the down, and know that that's not the end, and know that this record is going to be released to the world again, and it has a future. It has the future it deserves, And yeah, that's really a big part of this. Unfortunately, Jordy didn't join us. If he would have, that would have made it even more interesting. But call out to him as my metal brother, and John, Chad, and everybody else who was ever in the band, from Sean to George, Barry, Mike Palins, Bob Franquez, Bobby Blanton, Justin. This is all for you. It's for you. It's for everyone. So A New Hope is reborn.